Hey everyone, today we're sitting down to build a Blood and Snow character for ICRPG. Blood and Snow is a really unique and interesting world and setting to play in, but like the introduction says, something that you want to consider when creating your character for Blood and Snow is putting your imagination in this time and place, this Paleolithic prehistoric time. This isn't fantasy or sci-fi or high adventure. This is a quiet, simple world of very real dangers and very human heroes. But these human heroes aren't just cavemen with their Uggs and their grunts. Try to imagine rich intellectual life, complex and wondrous social structures, this refined technology and spiritual awareness. This allows you to have these heroes face these daunting perils in this frozen world of giant beasts and violent weather without the aid of magic. It's on the reliance of their own strength and their tribe to come out, to share their fire with one another, and to try to survive. And that's where I think the adventure is going to come from. So let's keep that in mind as we build this character and look through how the process works, because it's a little bit different than what you might be used to playing in Alfheim or even Warp Shell. Although with Master Edition, it does make it a more familiar process, something maybe more akin to Vigilante City. When you first sit down to create a character in Blood and Snow, you might be a little hesitant or unfamiliar with how to create a character in this world. And so we're going to start and take advantage of the appearance, story, and oath tables to create this character, or provide a starting point to work off of. Now, these roles and these tables are not required to play Blood and Snow, but they can provide some interesting details that you might want to consider. So let's go down here and start with appearance and just roll a d6 to see where we're going to start. So I've got my dice, and I've landed with a 1, which means ragged. You haven't bathed, cut your hair, or fixed clothes in months. Okay, so that kind of detail tells me that this character has been out in the wilderness for a long time, or something's happened. He might be running, he might be just surviving, and so ragged is his appearance. Let's go with story. Maybe we can find some details to why he's so ragged, but let's find out what his backstory is by rolling a 5 and getting vengeful. They killed your beloved chief people, they must pay. All right. So already we can start to imagine a story forming of this, this hunter or this tribesman, this villager that has lost his tribe. Somebody came through, a mega beast, another tribe, killed those that he loved, and now he's out in the wilderness trying to survive and trying to get revenge one day. And then his oath. Let's see what his oath could be, which is a 4. Delusion. The snows have bent your mind. Unreal and real are blending. Okay. So that time and that experience may have broken his mind a little bit. So we can use that as a role-playing element to build off of and play with, and join into the ragged and vengeful details. Now, I can also change some of this. Like, none of these are meant to be taken literally, so if there's anything about these roles that maybe I want to tweak, I can feel free. Like, personally, they've killed your beloved chief people, they must pay. Maybe I want to say it was somebody specific, or maybe not. Maybe it was that beast instead of like another tribe. And so I can start defining out those details as I want to create this character. Then going back to kind of our process and step by step going through it, the next thing that we're going to do is building a character with 10 stat points. Now, you know me, I kind of hesitate to build with stats right off the bat until I have an idea of the character. So I'm probably going to hold off on statting out those points just yet, and I'm going to move on to the character tags, because that's going to be where I really define my character in this setting. So we're going to come back to that in just a second. So let's skip the stats and come down to character abilities, which are also tags. These character abilities are essentially things that your character can do, and it represents what your character's upbringing, origin, and life learning is. So if you were raised by a hunter, you could gain the archer, tracker, naturalist, or slayer abilities, and so on. And so we're going to start with 2 of these, and this is kind of how we define a little bit more of their history. And so thinking about what his oath and his story and his appearance are. There's really room for a lot of stuff based off that. But I'm thinking to myself, a tracker might be really good, again, for that thing, but maybe I want to play somebody who wasn't meant to be a tracker and on this vengeful pursuit. Maybe instead I want to build a more standard, kind of like an average villager. I like the idea of cook. So maybe he was somebody who provided there. And now another thing that you're going to notice is that I'm just using the standard ICRPG character sheet. And so these things don't necessarily, like, you don't have a space for tags. So instead you can use abilities, just like it says here, character abilities. When it says tags, we're going to just drop that in here. So I'm going to write down cook as one of my abilities and use my little shorthand to double food item benefits. Double food benefits. Okay, now a second ability is, so if he's a cook, going from there, let's see. He's probably not out hunting a whole ton. He's using it to make stuff. And so we're going to go with a forager as well. So now I'm starting to feel more like this character. Again, something tragic happened to him. He wasn't one of the warriors. He wasn't out fighting. And when the thing came on, maybe he was out foraging. He came back and his village was destroyed and everyone he knew was just dead. But he was never built to be that hunter, that warrior. And so now he's kind of out, lost. And that's where some of the delusions come in. And so we're going to go with forager, which is double outcome, double forage success. Success. Okay, something like that. All right, so now we are starting to feel that character vibe, and so I can either come back and build with the stat points, or I can start choosing equipment. And so let's build out with equipment and starter loot, and go from there. And then I can go with my standard of going stats last. So in the book, they have the starter loot. So I'm going to choose one of these. Let's see, Potioner's Gourd, Birdman Cloak, Scale Shield, Tusk Axe. He's ragged, so I'm going to hold off on the pelts. Okay, I think what I'm imagining is I'm either gonna go with the Tusk Axe, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, the story that I'm imagining is he walks into his village, he finds somebody, he, furrows his brow, he sets his mind to revenge, and he picks up a weapon, and then he's off and he leaves behind his home. Or, in a more tragic sense, he has this bracelet of Ord. Maybe his partner comes through and she is there dead, and he grabs off her bracelets and he puts them on his arms as a reminder, and then he goes off. And for me, I'm actually thinking that sounds a lot better to me, this more tragic sense. So I'm going to do bracelets of Ord. Bracelets of Ord. And that's going to give me +3 defense. And Mender, and the Mender tag is not needed to do repair rolls when I'm repairing these bracelets. So defense, okay. All right, now next up is, like it said, we have common equipment. There is no common equipment list in this section. So what you end up doing is you pull from Alfheim and other settings and then tweak them to better fit the Ice Age technology. wood, bone, sinew, leather, and the like. Additionally, you can grant yourself 3 just simple items. So, you know, we're just going to go things like a knife. Let's see, maybe yeah. So we can actually just come up here and we'll swing all the way up to Alfheim. Let's see, where is it at? There we go. We can scroll down here and we can start looking at what's happening. Okay, so we can do a knife, maybe with 2 common equipment. We can choose fisherman's satchel. So he's foraged, maybe he goes fishing. Fisherman's satchel. And let's see, maybe he has, let's give him a bow. Bow and arrows. Okay. And then I can go through and pick out some other basic stuff if I'd like to fit in with that space. All right, here we go. So I've got that, and then what I can do at this point is choose my stats. One other thing I'm going to do is probably Grant gets that mixed armor, so just that basic leather coat. And I think that gives me some defense, and I'll go back to that in a second. All right. So now I can build with my stat points. With the 10 points, I can divvy them out however I want. Alfheim suggests 6 points in stats and 4 points in effort, but you can kind of do it whatever you'd like. So the first thing they're going to do is, I know that he's a forager, so I'm just going to stick to some high basic. So I'm going to put 3 points in basic, and we're not going to put any, we're going to put maybe 1 in weapons, and we're going to stop there. Actually, I'm going to put 4 in basic. He seems like a hard worker and someone that goes out a lot, and so I'm going to give it that extra bonus. And then let's see, I'm going to put in some wisdom. I'm going to put a little bit in constitution, and I'm going to put in, let's do 1 point in dexterity. No, I don't like that, because again, I'm trying to imagine somebody who knows what's cooking, this foraging, and so I'm going to put 1 point in intelligence. Okay, so that gives me the 5 points in stats and 5 points in basic. So that can give me +2 con, +2 1, +2 intelligence, +2 to whiz, +4 to basic, and +1 to weapon and tools. Okay. I think other than that, you can still go through here and add in your bonuses for defense, for example. Now, one thing to mention about defense and armor in Blood and Snow is that you can play it off where armor is degraded over time. So you can see that I've got like this leather coat that probably gives me some armor. I'm going to say it's a +1 right now, and this +3 defense. And then I've got the +2 for constitution. And so my base clothing gives me 10 points of defense plus my con and my loot. So 10 +2 for con, and then we're going to say +4. So I end up getting 16 defense for my character. But what ends up happening is every time you take a hit, you subtract 1 from this defense until you repair your gear, and you repair it and find new armor and you mend it. So like if I get hit, all of a sudden my leather coat has, instead of +2 defense or +1 defense, it goes to 1 or to 0, and then it's destroyed, and then I have to spend time to fix it before I get it back. Or my bracelets start degrading over time as I use them, and it drops down to 12, and then you just keep getting hit, and you're more exposed over time, and so it becomes something that's more pressing to spend time repairing and finding new things to build it out. Now, I've got my character here. One thing that I do want to say is that right now I'm kind of building a male, but what happens if you were to build a prehistoric woman? Blood and Snow gives some suggestions and nuances that you can include in your game if you're building a woman character. And so one of the things that they suggest is pain tolerance, which is that when rolling to recover from dying, women only need a natural 15 plus to recover 1 hit points rather than that miracle 20. You can also give tribal status. You can grant, you can start with Chief or Seer or gain 2 rolls on the Ancient Loot table. Empathetic Genius, you can say when rolling Don't Die on Me, women roll easy. Or Keen-Eyed, women have the talent for quieting the mind, and so they can gain or when they have the Navigator tag, they never roll hard or scouting. And so these are just some nuances to kind of play into the into that social structure that may have been in the prehistoric Paleolithic times. And so it encourages you to imagine this in a new light. Okay. But then let's finish out this character and give him a name. Let's go with, let's say, Fron. I'm thinking he's in Blood and Snow, and he's a human, and he doesn't have a type because his abilities kind of define that type, so there's not like character types like in Alfheim or Warp Shell. Blood and Snow is a great setting. It's exciting, it's unique, and it's different. It's a great change of pace from just playing fantasy and sci-fi in the world, but the character process is just slightly different. But don't let that scare you off. Just dig into it, work through it, connect the dots, and you'll have an exciting character to play out in this Paleolithic world of ice and snow and nature.